Welcome to the Portland Culinary Podcast on Portland Culinary Radio. I'm Stephen Shumlin, your host. Today we are talking all things wasabi. Very excited. My special guest, Jennifer Bloeser, the founder of Oregon Coast Wasabi. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Stephen.
So I know you wear a lot of hats. So you and your husband, Marcus Mead, started Oregon Coast Wasabi. It's about 8 years ago?
Correct. We started it in 2010.
So he's a co-founder, but currently you're the CEO.
I am.
You wear a business hat. You wear a farmer hat business hat because you run the company. Mm-hmm. Farmer hat because you have an actual wasabi farm on the Oregon coast.
All true.
So farmer, businesswoman, entrepreneur, that's pretty amazing stuff.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of hats.
Okay, and I know that some people like wasabi. I think I know what that is. Well, we recorded an episode of the Portland Culinary Podcast, Wasabi 101, so people can listen to that if they want to know, because this episode's more about your story and your journey and kind of how you got here. Since Marcus is awesome, just where did you guys meet? How did that happen?
Marcus and I met in Port Orford, Oregon.
On the Oregon coast?
On the Oregon coast. Both of us doing work in fisheries. So we met very exciting. We met at a meeting.
And you have a scientific background.
My background is in environmental and marine sciences.
So every once in a while you'll tell me something like, oh, wasabi is a water-soluble molecule.
It's a good thing you're around to help me sound interesting.
Hey, it makes sense. It's like, okay, now I understand why I suffer with some salsas and not others. Because some salsas are oil-based molecules, and they coat your throat and your mouth.
All true. All true.
I learned that because of you. Okay, so starting a wasabi company, that is just crazy. And I kind of like to start at the beginning. So where were you born?
I was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Not anywhere near where any wasabi farms are, or even our wasabi farm is.
But there's a cool Billy Joel song.
There's a very cool and slightly depressing Billy Joel song about Allentown.
Okay, and where did you go to high school?
I went to Allentown Central Catholic.
And what was the mascot?
The Viking.
The Viking. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that. Okay. And just because I like to go chronological, but I want to skip ahead because, where did you first encounter wasabi?
I first encountered wasabi at an equestrian event near Santa Rosa, California. There was a gentleman at the event who had some plants, and he was giving them away for some reason and asked if anyone wanted them. And I said yes, not knowing anything about wasabi or growing wasabi. So I took those little plants and grew them and became attached to them and the whole idea of growing wasabi. And that sort of was the genesis of all of this craziness.
And speaking of that, because you can actually grow wasabi in your backyard, we recorded a third Portland Culinary Podcast episode, Growing Wasabi in Your Backyard, so people can listen to that, where we have very scientific details how to do that. But were you like a gardener? Did you like to garden?
I like to garden, and I did grow up doing some gardening. I did some gardening with my mom in the backyard. So backyard gardening, also part of where all this started. And then a little bit of early entrepreneurship of instead of having a lemonade stand, I sold pears. We had a pear tree in the yard. And so for some reason, I decided I was going to harvest the pears and sell them on the sidewalk. Okay. Not sure I made any money. But apparently this has been in my blood for a long time.
That is pretty awesome. Okay, so some strange guy at equestrian center says, hey, who wants wasabi plants? You like gardening. So what kind of stuff did you grow with your mom when you were a kid? Oh,
the standard, tomatoes and lettuce and some carrots and things like that.
But you liked it?
But, I loved it. I loved being outside. We had fruit trees. This was an urban garden. This was Allentown. So it wasn't like we had hundreds of acres. It was just the backyard. But it was a wonderful way to spend time with my family and just be outside as a little kid.
Yeah, I had a garden as a kid. Did it alone primarily, but I had lots of cherry tomato plants. Man, those things would just grow. That and zucchinis were the things I seemed to be able to grow. I planted lots of other things, but those are the things. Who knows how I knew anything at 10 years old, but I loved doing it. Okay, so that's why you took the wasabi plants, because you liked gardening, and you already kind of hinted at why, from a scientific background, you decided to start a business. So no one in your family has business background?
No one in my family has had their own business or been involved in agriculture.
So no business background, no farming background. So
No.
what's the background of your family professionally?
Engineering, the steel industry. The steel industry is big in the Northeast, so the steel industry and also nursing. My mother's was a nurse.
Okay, so steel and nursing, and you became an entrepreneurial farmer.
Farmer. Yep.
Okay, and
There's no logic to it.
yes, there was.
Well, I guess so.
You had
That's
a pear
true.
stand.
I had a pear stand.
That is a beautiful, fantastic story.
And I did farm a little bit as a kid.
Okay, so now if I remember correctly, it was about 2007. You moved from you were in Port Townsend at the time.
I was living in Port Townsend, Washington.
Which I love that town, fantastic
Beautiful.
town. Finn River Cider, who I love and brag about a lot, is near there in Chinnicum. So you moved there in 2007 to be with Marcus here in Portland. Mm-hmm. And shortly thereafter, you guys decided to start a company.
We did. Obviously, we tried to do as much due diligence as we could on the idea, this crazy idea of starting a wasabi farm. And we had some opportunities presented in terms of some property out on the coast that we could lease. And the pieces sort of just fell into place. There's very supportive community locally for food and food products. And also the Small Business Development Center here was incredibly supportive and helped us get our first loan. And all of a sudden, we had this farm.
Okay, so what made you decide to start a business? Not necessarily a wasabi business. Why business?
Well, when the economy crashed in 2008, Marcus and I were both, I was working for a nonprofit and Marcus was just getting out of graduate school as a planner. And anybody who lives in Portland knows that Portland is sort of the mecca for planners. So it's not like there were a lot of planning jobs open because there are thousands of planners around. And a lot of nonprofits lost their foundation support because the foundations lost their portfolios. So we were all of a sudden in a position to think, wow, we thought we were fairly frugal in terms of our lifestyle, but there was a lot of instability. So we thought we should try to think about something that we could develop as an added income. And I laugh about this now. We decided that agriculture was a good idea.
Because of all your extensive farming background.
I know.
Hey, I sold pears on a sidewalk when I was a kid. Let's start a farm.
Why not? This is guaranteed to give us financial stability.
So the Great Recession is part of what fueled you guys deciding to start a business.
Yes.
Yeah, same thing for me. It wasn't until 2011 when it finally, 2010, 11 wiped us out. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to start a whole new life. And so I think that happened for a lot of food carts started during the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. Okay, so now it explains why business. Now, why the heck wasabi?
So what happened actually is Marcus decided that he wanted to purchase. We were turning our front yard in Portland here into a garden. And he purchased, I think, 7 or 8 cubic yards of compost. And I don't know if anybody's seen 7 or 8 cubic yards of compost, but it's a huge pile of compost. And because we're in the city, they dump it in the street, which I'd never experienced before, not having lived in an urban environment like this. And I was kind of horrified. And I thought really quickly, all of our neighbors grow delicious things, and they give us tomatoes and onions and carrots and things. And I thought, what could we grow that wouldn't be one of those things that we could give to them? And so I sort of harkened back to thinking about wasabi and started investigating growing it, which just sort of snowballed into finding some rootstock and then the property becoming available. And this whole idea just mushroomed. Well, maybe we could actually grow this. It's a funny plant. And the way it grows sort of would have lent itself to us continuing to have full-time jobs and also run the farm. At least we thought at the time. The business grew a lot faster than we thought, and not surprisingly to anyone who has a business, started demanding a lot of time. But we were just trying to grow something we could give to our neighbors that would be fun and delicious.
So you've got wasabi growing in your own yard.
Mm-hmm.
You decide to become self-employed. Some dirt's available out on the coast, and you're like, hey, I could grow that wasabi commercially.
Right. Yeah, there's not very much linear logic there. And also, as many people who have businesses have experienced, we started the farm in 2010. For the first almost 7 years of the business, we did maintain our day jobs. So we ran the business at night and on the weekends. And the business grew to a point that it just really needed our full attention. And also, we just couldn't continue to do it. It wasn't sustainable to try to have full-time jobs and run the business at the same time.
Yeah, eventually it just takes too much time. You have to decide to go for it.
Right,
Go for it or
exactly.
shut it down.
Go for it or shut it down. Yep.
I love it. Okay, so the business is based here in Portland, but you have a real live wasabi farm on the Oregon coast.
Yes.
And I know you get lots and lots of inquiries, people wanting to visit the farm. And so I think I have a metaphor to help people understand where you're at with that. So there's some wineries that I really love that have a big tasting room. You can go try their wine and taste it. There's other wineries, they grow and make wine, but they currently have no tasting room.
Right.
And there's some breweries, Roos Brewer, and they're getting ready to, hopefully this year, they'll be opening their brewery. They'll have a cool tasting room. But right at this moment, January 2018, there is no Roos Brewing tasting room. So you can drink their beer at various places if you find it on tap, but you can't go to Roos and check it out.
Those are excellent analogies.
So that's kind of where you're at right now. You can't.
Right.
You have to be very careful growing wasabi. People just can't show up. There's no tours. There's no tasting room yet. And if you did open a wasabi tasting room, you'd probably do it in Portland anyways, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, we have very minimal infrastructure at the farm, and due to that, and also needing to protect the plants from potential pathogens, we don't really do tours at this time.
So would those be fungal pathogens?
Yes, they very good, Stephen. They would be fungal pathogens.
I pay attention. Yeah, because I did get the opportunity to go out and tour the real live Oregon Coast wasabi farm. We had to put our feet and stuff to kill all the bacteria, and had to put on these white suits and take showers. No, it wasn't that bad, but we did have to be very, very careful to not track literally fungus into different your different what do they call those things,
greenhouses
into the different greenhouses.
Yeah,
because wasabi is a little finicky.
It is. Yeah, and it has an interesting reputation for being very, very difficult to grow. It has a couple of very specific requirements, but also it's very different, and as people know who grow things, it's one thing to grow a single plant in your backyard, and then it's another thing to try to scale it up into an entire farm of something.
But some of the secrets to growing it in your backyard, because people think it's a possible, we shared on the Growing Wasabi in Your Backyard podcast, because you know those secrets. But yeah, different between, it's just like being a home brewer or a winemaker at home and then making it, commercially.
Exactly.
It's just a whole different scenario.
Exactly.
Okay, so you now have the largest wasabi farm in the United States.
We do.
How does that feel?
Strange. Because we don't have farming background in our families, and we also are not Japanese, and so sometimes it sort of blows their mind a little bit, because people are not experienced with wasabi, and what they think of as wasabi only comes out of Japan. So people aren't used to thinking about a domestic wasabi product. But we have sought out people who have experience with the highest grade wasabi in Japan, so that they can compare it and tell us. What our goal is, to have it be as good or better than what comes out in Japan, since Japan is the gold standard. And we've gotten feedback that it is, from chefs and from others who have experience with the Japanese product.
Now, one thing about wasabi, you taught me something that was shocking to me. I mean, and I don't use that word loosely. It was shocking to me that most of the time when I've been, and you told me, and then I did some research and discovered, as crazy as it sounded, like this, you told me it's like this huge conspiracy. And I thought, there's no way that's true. It's like, Jennifer needs a tinfoil hat. That's impossible. But you were completely right, that all the times just about that I've had wasabi in a sushi restaurant, I've been lied to.
Yeah, and at this point, I even hesitate telling people, because it upsets people so much sometimes. 90+% of the wasabi that people are served in sushi restaurants is not actually wasabi. It's a fake paste, and it doesn't have any wasabi in it. So it's mostly made of horseradish and mustard and dye. It's dyed
in the green dye.
Yep. Yeah.
And part of the reason that I went and started checking. I have friends that own sushi restaurants and discovered, that's not actually wasabi. We don't buy that stuff. And it's true, but B, then when I tried your grated wasabi paste, it was amazing and wonderful and did pair perfectly with the sushi. And I realized, wow, I never have had this flavor before. And I don't know how they get away with lying like that. They don't even put quotes around it. They just wasabi. And I don't know how that's possible, but it is. And so just be advised, if you're at a sushi restaurant, odds are you're probably not having real sushi. But there are some sushi restaurants, even in Portland, that have real Oregon Coast wasabi on the menu.
Yes. Zilla. So we do sell locally to restaurants, and Zilla.
I've had your stuff at Zilla Sake and Sushi.
Yes,
fantastic
Zilla
people,
Sake
wonderful
and Sushi,
food.
They do a great job. And also Chef Naoko of Naoko's Kitchen. She actually carries our product too. And I'm sure there are some other restaurants in the Portland area that have real wasabi. And it's always just good to ask.
Yep. Well, yeah, but okay, you know, then they have the low sodium soy and the regular soy sauce on the table. There's no low sodium soy. They just buy the one and fill them both. So just they'll tell you, oh yes, that's low sodium, but they're lying dogs. There's no big commercial container they fill from. Just don't ask me how I know this. I just know it for a fact. And so even if they tell you it's real wasabi, it may not be.
It may not be. It may not be.
So one of the things that you did is you rebranded fall of 2000. Last year 17, fall 2017.
Fall 2017.
So some people I thought I knew about that company because there's mystery in Oregon about wasabi farms, isn't there?
There is.
There's what's the one that the myth of the one down south?
There was one near Florence, and the myth of that one was that there was some sort of Japanese mafia that showed up on their big, limousines and tried to take over the farm or take product or something like that, and they were escorted off the property. And we've not had any experience like that. And with your help, which has been really awesome, we were able to rebrand the business. We were previously known as Frog Ice Wasabi, which was a really, lovely lyrical name and a lot of fun, but we decided, since we're growing the business, and that's really what we're focused on doing, is growing and expanding, that it was time to change the name to Oregon Coast Wasabi, and which is reflective of where we are and what we grow. So it's pretty obvious. We did have a few people who were concerned about the presence of frogs in our wasabi, or what we were doing to frogs.
Yeah, are you hurting frogs?
No frog was ever harmed in the production of our wasabi.
But just to eliminate that question, you just became Oregon Coast
Wasabi. Yep.
Yeah. And then some of the wasabi, I'm not going to name names, but I've done research now since I've been around you. Some of the wasabi sold here in the Portland area, some of it is imported like frozen pieces. It's not even grown. They market it as Oregon wasabi, but it wasn't grown here. It was grown, overseas, imported, frozen, and then sold as pieces.
Yeah. So and it gets ground up into a paste. So
and I don't mind that. Just tell me that. Tell me it's imported, then it's not local, and Oregon's not just a brand. Because when I see Oregon on something, like Oregon cranberries, you know where I think those cranberries were grown? In Oregon.
Crazy.
Crazy. I know. I'm weird that way. Like if it's an Oregon IPA, I think it was brewed in Oregon. So you actually grow wasabi on the Oregon coast.
We actually do. Yes. We grow real wasabi. Wasabi japonica. We grow a couple of different varieties.
What is that?
The scientific name for wasabi is Wasabi japonica.
Wasabi japonica?
Yeah.
And what's a brassica?
Brassica.
That's a cocktail, right?
Yeah, no. But you can put brassicas in cocktails. A brassica is the family of plants that includes broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and kale and chard and mustard and wasabi. Wasabi is a brassica. It's in that family.
Gotcha. Okay, and as far as a company, but just wasabi is in the brassica family, but its official name again is
Wasabi japonica.
Wasabi. And are there other kinds of wasabi with other names?
There are cultivars. So as far as I know, they don't have any kind of subspecies designation, but they have different sort of common names. So we grow Daruma and Mazuma. We grow those two cultivars. And we're actually trying out a third cultivar.
But those are all...
They're all the same scientific
They're all
name.
wasabica.
Yeah, they're all Wasabi japonica.
Okay,
yeah.
so when someone sees Mazuma or what was the other name?
Daruma.
It's just a variation of the main thing.
Yes, exactly.
And do they taste a little bit different?
They taste pretty similar. They have a little bit of a color difference, and they have a little bit of a growth habit difference. The Daruma grates up a really bright green. It'd be the bright green that you would be familiar with what you think wasabi paste looks like. And then the Mazuma because it has a little purple ring inside of it, when you grate it, it grates up a little bit more of an olive green. And they're both delicious. They both have that fiery, nose burn, but then they also have some floral components and some vegetable components to the flavor.
So in the Wasabi 101 podcast, we got more into what is wasabi and the different parts of the plant. But, for the thing people, what do they sell? So you sell the plant stock, which is the part that's grated up for paste.
Correct.
People go online and they can buy that.
Yep.
Go to OregonCoastWasabi.com and buy that. You sell the leaves or the greens. You call them, see if I get this right, heartleaf wasabi greens.
Heartleaf wasabi greens.
And people just eat them like salad or do all kinds of things with them. I have a friend that made spanakopita with them. just amazing. And then you sell the leaf stem, the part that goes from the leaf down to the some people call it the root, but that's not really true. The knobby part you grind up for paste. Between the leaf and that knobby part, there's this stem, kind of like a thin, spicy celery. You sell those.
Yep, we do.
And people do all kinds of, I have a friend who she snips those up and puts them into mashed potatoes for wasabi mashed potatoes. And then you sell wasabi plant starts.
Yes. Yep.
So I can order it, have the plant start sent to me, and just start growing wasabi.
You can grow it in your own backyard. Yeah, it's been really fun. We have the whole culinary side of the business, which is what you said about the stalk of the plant and the stems and the greens. And then we have this whole horticulture side where we get to interact with gardeners. So we go to plant sales and we ship also direct from our website to people all over the country. And it's been wonderful. They send us photos of their plants and tell us stories about what they do with the greens or, how their plants are doing, or what their pets like to eat. The bunnies and things like to eat the plants. So I really enjoy working with gardeners, definitely as much as I do working with the whole chef and restaurant side of our business.
Well, and that's why we made a separate podcast episode about growing wasabi in your own backyard, because people are stunned to discover this is a real thing. They've always wanted to, heard the mystery of it, and you actually teach people how to pull it off.
Yeah, it's fun. It's actually really fun to be able to introduce people to wasabi. Yeah.
Well, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I love your company. I love what you do. I know you're working hard to grow your business. Everyone has like a goal, to make things happen. A friend of mine, Tina, is working really hard to grow her barbecue sauce business, grow it to the point where, her husband can join her. And you're doing the same thing.
We're doing the same thing.
Marcus has a day job and he works in the business. He makes videos and he does all kinds of things behind the scenes. But then your hope is that sometime soon he can be full time and you guys can live together, work together, and hopefully figure that stuff out.
Yes. Yeah. And yes, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow the business so that both of us are able to put our full-time energy into it.
Entrepreneurs that work together need the book A Startup Life.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. It talks about how having a relationship with an entrepreneur. So
yeah, I would highly recommend that, actually.
There'll be a lot of challenges. Well, Jennifer, I love what you do. I think the company's amazing, what you guys have put together and how you're growing the business. And thank you so much for joining us on the Portland Culinary Podcast.
Thanks, Stephen. We love working with you.
All right. Cheers.